All right, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the CIDI Enhancements training. We're going to talk about dispute comments, turning inquiry tickets into disputes, and the predictive search feature. My name is Rochelle Wiltius, and I am the one that's going to take you through today's session. I'm actually joined virtually by some of my colleagues who may speak up during question and answer periods or to just provide some additional clarity when needed when discussing this topic. And they're going to introduce themselves here shortly. As a reminder, in an effort to increase transparency and provide greater service to our stakeholders, we are recording this webinar. It's going to be posted on our website so that you can review it in the future and for anyone who is not able to join today's call. After this training is complete, these slides are also going to be posted on our website, kaiso.com, along with that recording of the training. And that is all found on our Learning Center under new modules on the right-hand side. As we progress through the training, I'm going to be stopping for questions, and we're also going to document any questions you might have and update the training accordingly, just in case we're missing anything. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. And first, I'm going to let the subject matter experts introduce themselves. So we're going to actually start with Mo. Mo, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Rochelle. Good morning, everyone. My name's Mo Monetary. I'm also one of the CIDI admins, and I'm really excited about today's training, so thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mo. Next, we have Mai joining us. Mai, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mai Vu, and I am a dispute analyst on the dispute team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mai. And then last but not least, I have a fellow trainer here, Heidi Carter. Heidi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I will be your producer today, and I will be monitoring the chat for your questions. So actually, if you could open up your chats now and make sure that that you can see that. I just put in a note there. When you are asking a question, please be sure to send it to everyone, and that way we can see it. So I see a couple of thumbs going up there, so that's great. So thank you and enjoy today's training.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Heidi. As she mentioned, she's going to monitor the chat. If you ask a question while I'm kind of going through the training, we will hold on to those and answer all of those questions during the question and answer periods. So with that, let's get started. Talk about a little housekeeping. The first one that I ask is just to make sure that you keep yourselves muted unless you do have a question. There's always background noise, as you guys know, and I want to make sure that you guys can hear me clearly. So just keep yourself on mute unless you do need to speak up. If you have a question, you have two options. You can either ask that question over the phone vocally, or you can ask it in the chat if that's easier for you. We do ask, though, if you want to ask the question audibly, to virtually raise your hand in the WebEx, and it's all the way to the right-hand side under your name. You can raise your hand. This way, Heidi just knows to call on you during that question and answer period. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move directly into the training. This is what we're going to talk about today. We have a packed schedule, but we'll definitely get it all done. So in this training, we're actually going to review the changes to the menu tabs and buttons on the CIDI community page. There are just a slight couple of changes, and I want to go over those with you. So when you open up CIDI tomorrow, you're not going to be surprised by that. The second thing we're going to talk about is we're going to discuss the new process for turning inquiry tickets into dispute tickets, right? We're also going to learn about the new process for requesting a call with the ISO dispute analyst when a dispute ticket has been closed. So there's a new feature that's going to allow you to communicate with the dispute analyst directly. We're very excited about that one. Also, my personal favorite for the enhancements here, we're going to look at the new predictive search feature in CIDI. When you create an inquiry ticket, it's going to automatically search for knowledge articles. It's so great. We'll take a look at that as well. And then last but not least, we're going to wrap up with talking about what the next steps are before these enhancements go into production. So first things first, I did want to mention that all of the enhancements we're going to go over today were requests that originated from you. We sent out a customer service survey back at the beginning of the year, we received these requests for enhancements, and these are the ones that we implemented. So these come directly from you guys' requests. Also, with regards to scheduling, these new enhancements are going to be implemented into production tomorrow. So hopefully you feel this training is timely. We're going to get you all set up. You're going to come into work tomorrow. When you open CIDI, you're going to see these new changes. So November 30th. All right, so the first thing we're talking about is menu tabs. So what are some of the main differences? The first one is the Submit a Case button. So previously, you can see the current screenshot on the right-hand side. When you wanted to submit a ticket, you would click the Submit a Case button. That has been expanded into two different buttons, as you can see on the right. The first one that says Submit Inquiries, Access, or Maintenance, and the second one that says Submit Dispute. So you want to just select the correct button when you're creating a ticket. Oops, one second, guys. Okay, the second update here, we moved the knowledge articles and cases button. So they used to be all the way on the right. Now they're going to be all the way on the left. And so you will see those buttons moved. With regards to how the different ticket types are organized, there were some changes, right? So the settlement dispute record type is in a button of its own, which is that Submit Dispute button. All of the rest of the case record types fall under the other button, which is Submit Inquiries, Access, and Maintenance. So that includes the Application Access Request case submission, the one you probably utilize the most, Inquiry Ticket, Negotiated Rate Applications, Onboarding and Maintenance, and Reliability Coordinator Inquiry. So all the rest of them on one, and then the dispute has got its own separate button. One thing I did want to remind you, there's no changes to this, but I do want to highlight it in case you're not currently utilizing it. At the top of CIDI, you're going to see a link that says System Operating Messages. You can view any upcoming scheduled maintenance from that link. It's very handy. So if you're curious if any of the applications are getting worked on, they're going to be down for a certain time, that's what that link is there for. So again, not a change, just a general reminder that it's there. All right, so not a ton of big changes to CIDI menu, but we are going to go into our first big change, which is the enhancement to be able to turn inquiry tickets into a dispute ticket if that is needed. So this is the part of the training where you guys have a little bit of interactivity to do here. I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I'm curious, we're going to do a little polling for the group. So let me get this up and running. Okay. You should see a poll on the right-hand side of your screen, and I want you to answer this question. So have you ever submitted an inquiry ticket to the California ISO that needed to be turned into a dispute ticket? Okay, let me open that poll for you here. Maybe you say A, that has definitely happened. I've definitely submitted an inquiry ticket and realized it was a dispute. B, once or twice, it might have happened. C, no, not that I can really think of. I'm pretty clear on what's the inquiry ticket and what's the dispute. And lastly, and this is totally okay, I'm not really sure how to submit tickets yet. I'm in the training and I'm trying to learn more about CIDI. So let's see where we fall as a group. Again, any of these four are okay. I'm just curious where, how many of us have done this before. All right, give you guys a couple more seconds here. So make sure to get those answers in. All right, let's see what we have. Okay, well, this is great. So not a ton of people that have had to deal with this issue. So that's fantastic. But a few people that said that has definitely happened, and a good amount of people saying, yeah, once or twice. So I'm thinking that this enhancement might be super helpful to those of you guys that have run into that particular issue. So thank you guys for participating. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the purpose of this enhancement is going to allow the customer experience team, so the ISO, to give you the ability to create a dispute ticket from an inquiry ticket on a case-by-case basis. So kind of wordy, but what that means is we, the ISO, are going to turn on the ability to allow you to change that inquiry ticket directly into a dispute ticket. So before we talk about the new process, I want to talk about the old process so that we're all level set here. So this is the current process. If, let's say, you created an inquiry ticket and then all of a sudden you realize, oh no, this should be a dispute. Okay, so the first step is you create the inquiry ticket, right? You work with your customer service representative. You guys determine, oh, this should be a dispute ticket. The customer representative then closes the ticket and informs you via the comments, hey, we need to create a dispute ticket. And then you have to go in as a customer and submit a whole new ticket and manually copy over all that information that's on the original ticket. So none of that information is transferred to the new ticket. Any kind of attachments, any kind of comments are not transferred over. So what is the change? Let's talk about the new process. So in this new enhancement, you're going to create the ticket, same as before, that inquiry ticket. You would work with the customer representative, and let's say you guys decide together, oh, this should be a dispute ticket. Then the customer representative on their end is going to enable the option for this new button called Create a Dispute Case from this inquiry case. They'll close the old inquiry ticket. You receive notification that that ticket is closed and that it can be turned into a dispute ticket. And then you will go into CIDI, create that dispute case using that new button, and all information on that inquiry ticket is transferred over to the new dispute ticket. Okay, so it's all automated once that button is available. And I'm going to walk you through this process step by step so you can see some screenshots and what it looks like. All right, so as we mentioned, step number one, right? The original inquiry ticket is closed, and the comment from the customer service representative says, hey, we want you to turn this ticket into a dispute ticket. Well, how do you know about that? You receive an email with that ticket resolution saying you need to submit a dispute ticket. And that's really the indicator for you to go into that original ticket and generate the new dispute ticket. So what are you going to see on your end? You're going to open that inquiry ticket, and on the right-hand side there, that big blue button that says Create a Dispute Case from this inquiry case. That will be enabled once the customer representative does the work on their end. Okay. One thing I do want to mention, though, if you do not have access to submit dispute tickets, you are going to receive an error when you click that button, because you do have to have dispute access in CIDI in order to use this functionality. So once you click the button, actually, let's back up. We're going to talk a little bit more about access, actually. So what do you do if you don't have access, right? You know that inquiry ticket needs to get turned into a dispute, and you realize, oh, shoot, I don't have the correct access to do that. You have two options here. One, you can work with another person in your organization who does have that access. So if they want to go into the ticket and then they create the dispute, they could do that. The second option is you could work with your UAA to get that access if you need it. So via AIM, they can give you that dispute access. So just a heads up, if you do receive that error, those are your two options available. Once you click the button, you're going to receive a pop-up to enter all of the additional information that that dispute case is going to need. So you're going to fill that out. Of course, the required fields are highlighted with the red asterisk. Then you're going to click Save. I do want to mention that process can take a few seconds. So once you click Save, you'll see it's loading. And just be a little patient while that happens, because it can take some time. If you happen to skip some of the required fields, you are going to receive an error. So it will tell you, in this example, we did not enter any trade hours, and you can see the error at the top. It said, hey, we need to know what trade hours this dispute is for. So it is going to check for validation on all of those fields. And then once you click Save, that dispute case has now been created, and all information from that original inquiry ticket is copied over into that dispute ticket or that dispute case. I also want to mention there's a new field on the tickets that says related IMS case. And in case that you're curious, was this one of those special tickets that was transitioned from an inquiry to a dispute ticket? It's going to actually have the associated inquiry ticket number listed on that case. And that's how you know that this was transitioned. A few other items to note before we go ahead and pause for some questions. I'm thinking you guys might have some questions about this process. As I mentioned, the button, the create a dispute case from this inquiry case button, is not going to show unless the customer representative initiates that process. You're not going to be able to see that button until the customer rep does that. So if you think that needs to happen, you need to contact the customer representative. Also, anything that's included in that original ticket is transferred over to the new dispute ticket. We talked about that. What does that include? That includes all of the comments on the ticket. That includes any sort of attachment that you had attached to that ticket and any other data that you had put there. Also, last but not least here, adding anything to the original ticket after it's transitioned to a dispute ticket is not going to get moved over to the dispute ticket. So be very careful about that. Once you create the dispute ticket, that is now the live ticket. And the other one is closed, and you do not want to enter comments on it because people will not see that because the ticket is now closed. Let's talk a little bit about timing. So how does the timing of this process work? You're going to have 10 business days from the time that button is initiated to create the dispute ticket. After those 10 days, that button is no longer going to be able to be selected, okay? And just a reminder, you're going to want to follow the dispute, regardless of the 10 business days of that button being available, you still need to follow the dispute submission window deadline that's located on our payments calendar. So it has to follow that as well. If you select it after the dispute submission window deadline has passed, you're going to receive an error message as well. So you have 10 business days from the time that the button is created, but also it needs to fall within the current dispute submission window deadline. And then last but not least, you still need to go through the process of closing out that old inquiry ticket. What I mean by that is accepting the resolution of the case so that it can be closed and all of that work is now done on the dispute. All right, so it's a lot of information for you. I'm going to pause here just in case you have some questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is open it up for verbal questions. If you have a question, if you could go ahead and raise your hand on the right-hand side of the participant chat panel. That way Heidi can call on you. And then after that, I saw some questions coming in through chat. We'll answer chat questions.
So I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Great, thanks Heidi. Do we have any questions in the chat?
The only questions that we had, there were two that went through, is the presentation posted, and just letting them know, reminding them that this presentation will be posted along with the recording then the next couple of days after this presentation. And I put a link in there to the Learning Center where this will be posted. And then there was another question, will the system maintenance tab, will that display the map stage system maintenance as well? Monica, thank you, or Mo, thank you very much for responding. She wrote down that it will only display production maintenance. We just did get a question in here. Who is the customer representative? So I don't know if you want to handle that one. If you're, oh, and Monica responded, client reps are assigned to each customer. And then we got another question. What is the specific error message they will receive if they do not have the access to submit a dispute ticket?
Oh, great question. Mo, I know you did some testing on this. Do you happen to know what error message that the customer will see if they do not have dispute access and they're attempting to create that dispute ticket from that button?
Thank you, Rochelle. It will basically say that you do not have access and to work with a individual that does, and we'll include a screenshot of that error message in the user guide. So that way you'll be able to see that on there.
Great. Thanks, Mo. All right. Any kind of final questions, Heidi, that we missed, or any hands? Other than that, we will move on.
Oh, one more just came in from Amy at MID. If you turn in an issue ticket that is later determined that it should be a dispute, is the date of the dispute the date of the issue ticket or the date of the dispute ticket?
Oh, great question. Mai or Mo, do you guys know like how that date is determined?
Let me think about that for a moment. Let's see. So going back to what Rochelle talked about earlier, when you're submitting your dispute ticket, again, just want to reemphasize, you definitely want to consider the submission timeframe. And I believe that the dispute date.
Hey, Mo, this is Steve Castanelli. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Steve.
Hey, can I jump in and provide a little guidance on this one? All right, thank you.
That.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it took me a while to get logged in. So any sort of dispute window is based on the trade date of the issue. It has nothing to do with the timing of any sort of submission through CIDI on the inquiry side. Again, the dispute in the SDS side of things, whether it was originally submitted as an SDS or converted from an IMS issue, a regular CIDI issue, is entirely based still on the ISO calendar, the payment calendar, which is based on the trade date of the activity, not any sort of submission timeline associated with an inquiry into CIDI. Does that, I think, address, Amy, the question?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Amy, let us know if that, that does not address the question in the chat.
And there are two more questions that just came in. One, where do we find the user's guide? And that will be, I'm guessing, under applications. Is that correct? On the website?
That is correct.
Okay, access. So I'll put in a link to where you'll be able to find that on our in the chat here in a couple minutes. Sounds like somebody else was going to make a comment.
No, Heidi, you are correct. Thank you. It is going to be posted under the application access page on our public website. Thank you.
Great. And there's another question. Are customer representatives assigned per ticket, or does an entity have one main assigned customer representative? And do you want me to respond, or do you want to go ahead and respond, Mo?
So customer representatives are assigned to each organization. There is a customer contacts page that is posted on our website. When you sign up to become a market participant, a client rep team is assigned to you. You can refer to this document, and we can post that as part of the follow-up document for this presentation as well, so that way you'll have access to who your client reps are.
Hey, Rochelle, this is Steve Castanelli again. Can I add one more point of clarification in that client reps are assigned per scheduling coordinator, not customers, not organizations. If you have executed a scheduling coordinator agreement, then you have a client representative team assigned to you, as Monica was referring to, but it has to be based on scheduling coordinator agreement. That is what constitutes having a client rep assigned. Just want to provide that clarification. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
We did have a follow-up from Amy, and it says there are deadlines for when disputes are due. If I turn in an issue ticket prior to the deadline, is that the date of the dispute, or is the date of the dispute when the ticket is converted from an issue to a dispute? So
I think if I'm understanding it correctly, this is Steve Castanelli again, I'm sorry. If I'm understanding it, we're talking about the timing of when the dispute would actually be considered submitted. So if the inquiry side of this was submitted prior to the dispute deadline, and we flagged this to be submitted as a dispute, and then the dispute wasn't submitted until after the deadline. I think that's kind of the example we're looking at here. So it is the timing of the dispute is going to be entirely when the SDS ticket, the dispute side of this, is submitted. And again, that must be done within the dispute window still, not the inquiry side being within the dispute window, but the actual SDS dispute side still has to be done within the dispute window for each trade date.
Great, thank you.
All right. So Amy said thanks. So that looks like you got to the heart of her question. So that's great.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Steve. All right, you got to think of another one to stump in more, Amy. All right, we don't see any other hands that are raised, and no more questions at this time, Rochelle.
Great. Thanks so much, Heidi. If you guys do happen to think of questions on this particular topic, you can always ask those as we continue through the training. Just give us a little context so we know what it is that you're asking. But other than that, we're going to move on to our next enhancements, which also has to do with disputes, which is enhancements to the comment process for actual dispute tickets. Okay, so I'm going to ask for some interaction with you again here. Okay, I have another question for you, which is, have you or anyone in your organization ever wanted to talk to the California ISO, specifically a dispute analyst, about a dispute ticket that was closed? So select A if you're like, absolutely, that has definitely happened. I have had questions and I've wanted to talk to someone. B, on occasion, right? Occasionally I've needed to do that. C, nope, I was good to go. I've never really needed to do that. Or D, and this is fine too, I've never really had to submit a dispute ticket. So let's see where we're at here. Select one of those options in the poll there to your right, and let's see where we fall as a group. Because if the answer is A or B, I think you're really going to like this enhancement. All right, so you have a couple more seconds to enter your responses there, and then we're going to take a look. All right. Okay, so you guys should be able to see there on the right, we have 14 people, absolutely that's happened, 13 people on occasion. A few people, no, I've never needed to talk to anyone, that's great. And a couple people that haven't had to do it before, which is also fantastic. So for the 20, 25 of you guys or so that have wanted to do that, this is going to be the enhancement for you. Okay. So a quick overview, and then we're going to jump into what it looks like in CIDI. So currently, market participants are really not able to submit additional dispute comments once that dispute submission window has closed. The ticket's closed, the window's closed. You also don't really have the ability to communicate with the dispute analyst outside of that dispute forum. So the purpose of this enhancement is to give market participants an opportunity to reach out to a dispute analyst with questions once that ticket is closed. So you say, hey, I see that you closed the ticket. I still have questions about why. I do want to mention with regards to AIM, you do have to have dispute access in CIDI in order to be able to use this functionality or see that. So you have to be able to submit a dispute ticket in order to request a conversation with the dispute analyst. If you don't have that and you need it, you can reach out to your UAA and they can give you that correct access. So we're going to, just like we did before with the other enhancement, we're going to talk about the process, we're going to talk it through, and then I'm going to show you step by step what it looks like. So the first thing is, let's say you would create that dispute ticket. The dispute team reviews it and they close the ticket, they respond, they probably put some comments in there. And then you receive an email stating that that ticket's closed, right? That your dispute has been closed. What you're going to see now is a new button that says additional questions for call from a dispute analyst. It's in that same place that that previous button was, so it looks relatively similar. You're going to click that button and fill out your contact information or whomever from your organization that wants to be contacted regarding questions. That dispute analyst is going to review all the proposed times, and they're going to confirm a time with that customer via a case comment. Yes, here's when you said you're available. This is when we're going to give you a call. You're going to review that selected time via that case comment, make sure you're available for the time that you guys have agreed on, and then you're going to get that call from the dispute analyst. And then on our end, we're going to update the ticket to show that that call was made. Okay, so that's the process, but let's actually step through it piece by piece so that you can see what this looks like in CIDI. So as I mentioned, once that dispute case is closed, you can see that blue button at the top right-hand side that says additional questions for call from a dispute analyst. Okay. Again, it's only going to show after the dispute is closed, though. You will not see this when that is still open. You click on that button, and a pop-up is going to appear, a window is going to appear, and you can see there are 4 fields here. It's going to ask you for your phone number, your first proposed time, right? What's the day and time? What's the best time for us to get a hold of you? And then any additional proposed times in case the dispute analyst doesn't have that particular time available for you. And then you also can put any questions in the chat that you have. What is it that you want to ask about? What is it that you need clarification on so that maybe that analyst can do a little bit of research before they chat with you. After you fill that out, you're going to go ahead and click Save, and off it goes to the ISO. An email notification is going to get sent both to the case owner and the responsible owner of that dispute, okay, that has been submitted. The dispute analyst is going to notify the customer via the case comment. So here's a perfect example, right? Your first proposed time should work. I'm going to call you at that time. And you'll get an email that a comment has been added so that you know that the dispute analyst is going to call you at that time. I do want to mention, though, there is a limit to this button. Once you've clicked it once and you've set up a call with the dispute analyst, that button is going to be disabled. It's still going to appear there, but it will be grayed out. And any further clicking of that button, you're going to get the error message that's listed on your screen. So it's really a one-shot thing. And after that, of course, it's not like you can't contact the ISO, but you won't be able to do it via CIDI or via this button. As with the previous button, there is a timeline associated with how long this is going to be available for. The additional questions for call from the dispute analyst, that is definitely a mouthful, button is going to remain active for 10 business days after that case is closed. After those 10 days, the button is going to be grayed out, just as if you had already clicked it once, to indicate that it was expired. So that's why you want to pay attention to those emails that are coming in. That's going to indicate that that's available for you to go in and select. Now, what happens if you provide maybe incorrect contact information, incorrect dates, or for some reason you don't, answer at that agreed upon time? The ISO is going to comment on that case and say, hey, we tried to call, we attempted to call, and that phone number was incorrect or no one responded. And that will be via the case comments. And then you will have to find an alternative arrangement to get in contact with a dispute analyst, meaning an inquiry ticket or contacting your client service representative, because once that is done once, it will no longer be available. All right, so I can imagine we might have some questions regarding this new enhancement. I'm going to pause here in case we have any hands up. We'll take those first, and then we'll go ahead and move to the chat questions. So Heidi, any hands up?
I am not seeing any hands raised at this time. Again, next to your name, if you wanted to ask a question verbally, just go ahead and click the button that would look like a hand to ask your question. I am not seeing any requests for verbal questions at this time.
Okay. Well, I did see some questions coming in via chat. That was fantastic. So let's go ahead and address those. What is the first question we have?
The first question that we had was from Lisa Brightwell, and she was asking, so if the inquiry isn't responded within the dispute window, does that mean we can't convert it to a dispute?
So I think this question might have been still on the previous enhancement. Can you say that one more time?
Yes, so if the inquiry isn't responded to within the dispute window, does that mean we can't convert it to a dispute?
Hey, Heidi,
Hi.
this is Steve Castanelli again. I think I can provide some input. And I apologize. I was trying to type a response to Lisa and just wasn't quick enough. So the inquiry does not remove the obligation of the scheduling coordinator to submit a dispute. So even if an inquiry has been submitted and it hasn't been converted yet, and the dispute window is approaching, the scheduling coordinator must either reach out to the client representative and ask for a conversion to make it easier to submit a dispute, or they can go directly through the dispute system and submit a dispute. But again, the timing of inquiry does not remove the obligation for the dispute to be submitted within the dispute window. So whatever means are necessary to get the dispute submitted on time is what the scheduling coordinator would need to follow. But I think that we, as as client representatives, would be happy to force the conversion if the scheduling coordinator reaches out to us.
Thanks so much, Steve. Heidi, what do we have next?
We had another question, and we got those responded to. We did have one from Christina Chapman, and Maya is going to respond to this. The question is, if an entity is a scheduling coordinator, how would they know who to contact for a dispute?
Hi, so once a dispute is opened, there is a dispute analyst that is assigned to each charge code, and that is how the system will actually automatically assign the responsible owner or the responsible dispute analyst to that dispute. So that's how you would know who to contact.
Thanks, Mai. All right, Heidi, what do we have next?
The only other one was for a specific. It was from Woon asking who his client reps were. So we were able to look that up. So he's got an answer there.
Great.
So if anybody is uncertain, please let us know. Other than that, there are no other questions at this time. And I'm looking one more time to see if there are any hands raised for verbal questions, but not seeing anyone. So I think you're good to move on.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. And as I mentioned before, if you think of anything as we continue through the training, absolutely either raise your hand or go ahead and put that question in the chat, and we're happy to answer it. So as promised, we're going to move on. Is there a question?
This is Yanni. I'm the manager for the dispute team. I would like to provide additional comments to Christina's question, like how would they know who to contact for dispute. So once they submit the dispute, if they have further comments or further questions, they can always provide their comments or questions through that dispute comment area. So, and once we see that comments or additional questions, we will contact with the market participants. So that's not bound by the dispute analyst. However, if the dispute analyst is off, then the other dispute analyst will take care of it too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's talk about, we're going to take a little bit of a shift from disputes, and we're going to talk about our new predictive search feature in CIDI. So you have one more opportunity to participate in the training. I just have one more question for you, I promise, and then the questions will end. I want to know if you've ever submitted an inquiry ticket to the California ISO and then realized that the information you were looking for was actually available in a knowledge article in CIDI. So I'm curious if you say, yes, I can remember actually a specific time that that has happened, and I found the information I needed. Maybe well, it's possible. I can't think of a time offhand, but it's definitely possible that has happened. C, not really. No, that's never happened. And then D, what are knowledge articles? And if you choose D, this is going to be awesome because I'm excited to talk to you about what knowledge articles are if you don't already know or use them in our application. So let's see where we fall as a group with regards to utilizing knowledge articles in CIDI when submitted. All right, so go ahead and fill out your poll. You have about 10 more seconds. All right, let's see what we have. Okay, we have a couple people. That's great. Yes, I can remember a specific time this has happened. Most of our people say, well, it's possible. I can't think of a time offhand. A couple people saying, not really. And then a few people, which I'm very excited about, what are knowledge articles? So we're going to talk about what they are and how that they can be utilized with this new feature. So the purpose of this enhancement is going to allow you to view a list of related knowledge articles based on the information that you enter when you're creating an inquiry ticket. So based on the words that you're entering in the subject field and the description field, you're going to populate a list of knowledge articles. Now, for those 9 people that said, hey, what are knowledge articles, Michelle? I don't know. The application of CIDI has a bunch of resources available for you that are searchable. You can think of knowledge articles kind of like an encyclopedia. You type in a topic and it will come up with maybe a description of a problem or something that we've run across that we know that many customers are dealing with. And our customer experience team are the ones that create and manage these knowledge articles. So usually the questions come directly from you guys as a group, and we create a knowledge article for other people to use. So let's take a look at what those look like. I do want to mention that this feature isn't available for every type of ticket. It's only available for the 4 ticket types that I've listed here. Okay, if you submit an inquiry ticket, if you submit a negotiated rate application ticket, an onboarding and maintenance ticket, or a reliability coordinator ticket. The predictive search feature does not work if you're submitting an application access request case, and for various reasons, but mainly you probably don't need it for that type of ticket. So you're only going to see it for these 4. Speaking of application access request cases, I do want to remind you not to use this specific type if you have an inquiry or a question. This ticket type should only be used for transmission registers, reliability must run discussion board questions, secure file transfer protocols, all of the things I've listed here. We've kind of seen an uptick in customers selecting that particular type when really that it should be an inquiry. They have a question about something, and we want to make sure that you're able to use the new predictive search feature when you do have a question. So as a reminder, just be conscious of selecting that particular ticket type. All right, so what does it look like now that you have that new predictive search feature? Well, the first thing you're going to notice when you come into work tomorrow and you open CIDI, and let's say you submit an inquiry ticket, is the submitting the ticket page looks a little bit different. So on the right-hand side, you can see the current version of it. It's a pop-up window, and you enter your information in the pop-up window. The new version is actually a completely full screen. And so you won't see kind of, you know, the actual dashboard on the back. You'll be directed to a new page to submit the ticket. There's a Launchpad now on the right-hand side that is where all of these knowledge articles or these these articles are going to show up once you start typing in the ticket. So the ticket information goes on the right, the Launchpad, the left, the Launchpad is on the right. And so here's an example of what this looks like. I actually just started typing in this ticket and I wrote meter data because I was curious what would come up. So in the subject field, as you're typing, articles are going to populate that may have to do with what you're inputting. So you can see on the right-hand side, all of these knowledge articles that we have regarding meter data are showing up because that is what I have listed. I also want to mention that it's not just looking at the subject field, it actually looks at the description. So in my example here, I typed in meter data, and then for whatever reason, I was curious, hey, what happens when you type in description? And I just type dispute, and I'm going to get a different set of results. So it's a very dynamic feature. As you're typing, you're going to get different sets of information, and we're hoping this might help connect you with the knowledge that you're looking for. In order to view a knowledge article, let me go back actually, you can see the knowledge article results are going to show on the right-hand side. You're just going to click right on that blue link to open the knowledge article. You say, hey, maybe this is going to give me the information that I need. That knowledge article is going to pop open in a separate window, as you can see here on that screenshot, and you can read through it. You can scroll down, go through it, and now you need to respond to that, right? Did that help you? Yes or no? So there are two different things that are going to happen. At the very bottom of the knowledge article screen, it says, hey, did this content resolve your issue? If you select yes, and you say, hey, this is actually exactly what I was looking for, I don't need to submit this ticket, I don't have this question anymore, and you select yes, it closes out the ticket, and it takes you right back to the CIDI community page. So it knows to close the ticket. Technically cancel the ticket. I apologize. I want to use the right wording here. So it cancels the ticket. But what if you say no? You said, yeah, I mean, this information was great, but I still have my questions. You can select no, and CIDI will prompt you and say, hey, we still need you to complete and submit that case form. So it'll prompt you to continue with that ticket process. A few additional pieces of information about predictive search. We actually have over 400 knowledge articles in CIDI. It's a very comprehensive database of information, but if you think that there's something missing that we can add, you can always email the ISO, email a customer service representative, and we can review that request to see if we should add that information into our database. The knowledge articles are populated based on keywords or phrases, as I mentioned, in the subject and description field. Every other field is not going to populate different responses. So it's just those two fields that are populating information. And with regards to limits, the knowledge article list on the right-hand side is only going to populate up to a maximum of 20 articles. There's no scroll bars, so if there are actually over 20 responses, which is possible, you're only going to see the top 20 on the right-hand side. So the more that you drill down, the more subjects that you put into the subject field, the more information that you put in the description field, the more accurate results you're going to get. All right, this one's pretty simple to use, but you're going to see a big change with that starting tomorrow. So I want to maybe answer any questions that you might have regarding the predictive search feature. So first, we're going to take verbal questions. If you do have a question, please make sure to raise your hand, and Heidi will call on you.
All right, I'm taking a look. I don't see any hands raised at this time.
All right. Do we have any questions via the Heidi?
So at this time, we don't have any questions in the chat either.
Great. I did notice someone found a typo. Thank you so much. I will make sure to get that corrected before we post this online. I always love it. You guys are very sharp-eyed, and I love it. So thanks so much for pointing that out. Okay, so probably this is a lot of information for you and you're asking yourself, well, what is it that I need to do next? What do I need to walk away from this training knowing what to do? The first thing is, if you haven't already done this, each organization needs to ensure that everyone who needs to submit CIDI tickets has the correct access. I'm kind of working on the second one here. If you are going to use these new dispute features, they need to have the correct role in AIM, and that's that external SDS read-write that's listed here. Okay. Going back to number one, ensure that everyone in the organization that uses CIDI is aware of these changes. So I'm actually going to put both this PowerPoint and the recording. It says tomorrow, but I will get it on there before close of business today. I want to make sure you guys have access to this today since these changes are happening tomorrow. Anyone in your organization that wasn't able to attend this training, you can send them the link, send them the PowerPoint, and they can review these changes. The third thing you need to do is make sure that you are prepared for the following changes to CIDI starting tomorrow. The first one, be ready with that predictive search functionality. So you don't want to be surprised when you open an inquiry ticket and it looks a little different. And then the second thing is be prepared for those two new dispute buttons that create a dispute case from the inquiry case and the additional questions for a call from the dispute analyst. All right, so before we wrap up the training today, I do have one more thing I want to talk to you about, but I do want to pause for any final questions that haven't been asked yet, anything that's on your mind before we wrap up the training.
All right, at this time, I'm not seeing any raised hands for verbal questions, and I don't see any additional questions in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. So as I mentioned at the beginning, oh, I do see a question here.
When are we going to be able to download our tickets in an Excel format?
Oh, Mo, I'm going to put this one over to you.
Thank you, Rochelle. So it is still on our roadmap to work on as a future enhancement. We do have this item as a pending enhancement, so we're still working out the kinks in the meantime. Once that feature becomes available, we will provide an update in the future.
Thanks so much, Mo. All right, one last item I want to mention is we want to hear what you think about this feature, about this training. Was it helpful? Did you find it was worth your time? You're going to be receiving an email from me shortly asking you to fill out a training evaluation. I know that they can be really annoying, but it's so helpful to us to hear what you guys think so that we can make edits in the future just to make our training for you better. So a heads up, you will receive that. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, both the slides and the recording are going to be posted on CISO.com by close of business today. If you do have any questions on anything presented, you can always email them to us, or you can visit our website at CISO.com and we'd be happy to answer questions. So with that, that does conclude our webinar for today. Thank you everybody for your participation. I really hope that you found it useful and informative and that you have a fantastic day.